Previously on the Clean Energy Show.
All right, I got a hot take this week, James.
A hot take from Brian Stockton. Everyone sit down, pull over to the side of the road, stop the train you're on. Here we go.
A hot take about thermostats.
Okay.
And it's such a hot take. I'm going to split it up into two parts. This is going to be part one this week. Part two next week.
A two-part hot take. Will part two stay lukewarm or be hot next week? We'll tune in to find out.
And now, this week, the exciting conclusion of Brian Talks About Thermostats. Hello and welcome to episode 291 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, one of Nairobi's largest ride-hailing providers is now 40% electric. The only thing is, of course, that those rides are on two wheels. That's okay, though. I've ridden some four-wheeled Ubers here that, well, I wasn't sure if the wheels were bolted on at all.
The power supply for Los Angeles is now coal-free. The only use left for coal in Los Angeles is for the Christmas stockings of all the Hollywood executives fighting over who gets to buy Warner Brothers in a race to kill the theatrical movie-going experience.
Putin went and sent an explosive drone into the protective layer around Chernobyl nuclear reactor site, and I say, we rebuild that drone, keep the radiation on it, and fly it into Putin's head.
Norway is pondering what they will do in a post-oil world. The small country has gotten rich off oil, but they're working on an exit strategy. Other coal-rich nations responded by sticking their fingers in their ears and saying, la la la, I can't hear you.
All that and more, and this edition of the Clean Energy Show. And also this week, how the onion made me laugh, and of course, the thing everyone is here for, Brian's hot take on thermostats, part 2.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Brian Stockton is set to release part 2 of his hot take on thermostats this week on the popular podcast, The Clean Energy Show. The world awaits with bated breath.
Right. Well, I hope the buildup was worth it. So, last week, to recap on part 1, I talked about how I was in a hotel. I couldn't properly control the thermostat. I would turn it down 1 degree and it would turn the air conditioning on, even though it was well below freezing outside. And that annoys me. It's inefficient. So part 2 is about cars, the thermostats in cars. Think back, James, to a time, 10, 20 years ago, you didn't set the temperature in your car by the temperature, by a thermostat.
Yeah.
Like there was just a knob that was sort of blue on one end, red on the other end. But anyway, things progressed. And so, 10, 15 years ago, it started to become common that you would set the temperature in your car with a thermostat, and you would be like 20 degrees Celsius or 70 Fahrenheit. But what I've found in practice is that really we just use it like we use the old knobs, right? Like you should be able to just get in your car, set it to your normal room temperature. But no, you have to crank it if on a cold day, crank it up to 23, 25 Celsius, and on a cool day, crank it down to 16. Like it really works basically the same way that the old knobs did, don't you think?
In a way it does, I guess, but I think your car's different because I set mine. It's true, I do set it a little warmer on cold days, but it's only 1 degree for me.
No, I find that I'm moving it around a lot to the point where I started to wonder, well, is there even a temperature sensor in the cabin of the car, or is it, sometimes it just feels like it's measuring the temperature of the heat that's coming out of the vent. Like that's more what it seems like. You need it at 23 to get it at 20, like to get it to feel like 20.
In my Leaf, it's down by the your left knee. Right at the bottom of the dash.
Yeah.
That's where it is. And also my if I may add a grievance, our Chevy Bolt goes in 1 degree Celsius because we're Canadian. We have 1 degree Celsius is like almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's a pretty big change.
Yeah.
I liked it when it was 0.5, because that would work for me. But the whole full degree, it's first world problems, people. I'm sorry to bring it up, but there you have it. It's a problem.
No, I was just in a hotel in Cypress Hills and it had a very old-fashioned heater, the kind that's mounted in the outside wall of the room, and it would only go up in 2 degrees Celsius. Or sorry, it was Fahrenheit. But it was like 68 and then to 70 to 72. Those are your only choices. But James, I haven't even gotten to my hot take yet.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm ready.
The real hot take is, I think this is affecting how people use their thermostats in their house. Because normally you just have a temperature, you have a daytime temperature and a nighttime temperature. And every once in a while you might, shift it 1 degree or something. But there are people in my house that shall remain nameless who, if they get a little bit chilly, will go and like crank it up 2 or 3 degrees on the thermostat. And I always say, don't do that. Just put it up 1 degree.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
And it doesn't make sense for a house. But I think our cars are training us to think that way because when you're in your car, you tend to use it like the old knob that was just blue on one end and red on the other end.
All right. Well, those of you who have heat in your cars, you have my envy. I've got lots to talk about here before we get to our news stories. Brian, in the name of science, I had a McVeggie at McDonald's. McVeggie burger at McDonald's, which are the new, they're not advertising them as fake chicken or fake meat. Like they're not beyond anything. They're just saying it's a McVeggie burger.
Sure.
And it fairly well resembles a McChicken sandwich. And it essentially is a McChicken sandwich with the patty replaced by a veggie concoction. And I actually found it quite good.
Right.
You know, I think I could, chicken isn't as bad as beef as far as the climate goes, but it's still better to not eat chicken. And I would prefer probably to not eat meat if I had that choice, if I could, have the willpower to do that. And if, however, it's a horrible thing. It should be called a mayo sandwich because it's mostly just mayo that you're tasting anyway. It's just like this bun with a crap load of mayo, some lettuce, and this patty on it. But it was all right.
I've always said if you eat a Big Mac and you can taste the meat, they made it wrong.
That's true. I had one recently, and I asked for extra onions, and I think they gave it me with extra sauce. And that's all I could taste was that damn sauce. It's just so bad that I could just
Which is good for them because you don't really want to taste that cheap meat.
The spicy version apparently is better according to the internet. So maybe it just masks the aftertaste. It did feel like I had there was some interesting vegetable aftertaste in there, but it was actually a positive thing. It was like a chicken with maybe tiny little chunks of pepper or something on it, red pepper. A little something, to give it some kick. So Brian, Trump is rolling back MPG guidelines, the fuel efficiency rollbacks in the states. He did this last time he was in office. California fought it. California and 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 states are the ZEV states who are trying to, keep their own fuel efficiency standards and force automakers to have an overall efficiency standard, which means if you want to sell that F-150 gas pickup truck, you also have to sell some EVs to make up for it.
Yeah.
And that helps EV adoption progress. But it's rare. I saw the story on CNN, and it is very rare to hear them talk like we do. Most media outlets just don't understand. They're really kind of in the dark about these things, like it's not their top priority. So they're not really fully educated. Sadly, I think some of them aren't listening to the show, some of these major network reporters, but I like Bill Weir of CNN. He's their main climate reporter for a while now, and occasionally he does a story that says, you get it, Bill. Yeah. You're telling the world. Maybe some people will understand. So it's good to hear that talk. And this is what the full clip is on our Patreon page, patreon.com/cleanenergypod. But this is a taste of that clip.
Well, the best analogy, Dan, that I've heard is imagine if President Taft, over 100 years ago, just as Ford Model Ts were cranking off the assembly line and tried to shut that whole thing down so the country could double down on horses and saddles and manure shovels. But so what's really striking is what's happening in the rest of the world, data that the president seems be trying to ignore. Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, was recently raving about this. This is a Show Me SU7. This is a car made by a Chinese phone company, not even an automobile company, that he says is one of the greatest things he's ever driven and presents sort of an existential threat to American automakers. That's a luxury brand. They go from $30,000 to $75,000. Take a look at this one. This is called the BYD Dolphin. It sells for less than $15,000 in Asia, less than 20 grand.
And I bet you 99.5 out of 100 people watching that had no idea of anything he was talking about. That's kind of the way it is. Of course, old people watch news channels. We're old, but not old enough to be out of touch, I don't think. Shout out to Generation Xers everywhere.
Yeah, even amongst our friends, if you don't listen to this podcast, you tend to just think it's business as usual and don't realize all the things that are happening in places like China.
Yeah, and it's true. Like Trump is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, he's killing the American auto industry.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't going to, die from self-inflicted wounds for not getting on board for being sort of sideswiped by Chinese EVs that people will want. If they don't want them now, they certainly will. There's, like I said, any excuse you can come up with against EVs ownership, it's been erased in China.
Yeah.
And when that technology gets here, when it trickles down from the luxury cars there to the regular cars, as it always does with any car, there's no excuse. You can't, you think you have an excuse not to drive an EV? You email me right now, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, and I'll tell you what's going on in China or elsewhere that is kiboshing your idea that you can't do it, because you can. There's everything is taken care of. Range, charging speed, everything you can imagine. Price. And speaking of price, The Price is Right was on again at the gym, as it always is, on two different monitors at the gym. It's a moderately sized gym at my medical clinic that I go to 3 days a week. And always The Price is Right is on because there's old people there. And I look and I think, oh, okay, well, they're probably my age, but I'm still going to call them old because that's just the way it is. Yeah, they had a Tesla Roadster on. Like they played the Roku channel with these old Prices Rights
that
go 24 hours a day because some people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one they made. And the actual price was, I think, $115,000 US. And the guy did not win it. But I thought, Tesla doesn't do advertising. Well, they kind of do now, I guess. But they, for 20 years, a decade and a half, they didn't do any advertising at all.
Yeah.
So that was one form of advertising. So I looked it up and I saw that, yeah, they've been on there a couple of times. And the audio was down. Well, I had headphones on listening to music, but everything seemed to be green, like the fashion models, the showcase models had T-shirts with green messages on them, and everything was like, environmental. It was environmental laundry detergent, which I know was big back then. I was trying it out, and it was just a thing that people were making an effort to do better things back there. But I looked it up, and Tesla has featured, The Price is Right has featured Teslas, including a first-generation Roadster in 2010, valued at over $112,000, the most expensive car in the show's history, and later a Model 3. So, yeah, you can watch that. It's on YouTube. Also had a Leaf one time. I told you about that on the show. I saw a brand new Leaf on the show the few weeks ago, I guess, and it was kind of... Brian, I'm starting to think these game shows have a secret green agenda, because you're always having clips from Jeopardy about electric vehicles. Like every 3 weeks, you have a clip that they're talking about it. So now it's time for the Clean Energy Show Air Quality Report. As you know, last June, our generous donors donated a air quality monitor to us, and it's worth about $500. It sits in my yard. It is publicly available data, and you can find it on iqair.com. And it is interesting stuff happening in the winter, I'm finding. The general impression I have is that the air quality is bad in the winter.
Okay.
Like, it's consistently bad, and we can't blame that on wildfires. Like, what is it? What's going on? It's kind of weird that have moderated, like, around 56 American Air Quality Index guideline, a number there, which is kind of bad. And we're all, like, you're taking in fresh air from outdoors. Is it temperature inversions? I don't know. I'm looking into it. I'm trying to figure it out. But 5 a.m. Saturday morning, I woke up to alerts on my phone, because I have alerts set for when the air quality goes bad. I want to know about it when it gets to a moderate level. And holy crap, Brian, it went to 10 plus, the highest level, at 5 a.m. Saturday morning.
Wow.
That is as bad as direct smoke from a wildfire wafting over the city in the summertime that we've had. And I thought, what the hell? And it was almost that much the hour before and improved pretty much the hour after. So it was there for a brief time. I looked up the Regina Fire Department here where we live. They have a Twitter account where they tweet all their fire calls. No fires. No fires. So I thought maybe there's a fire next door to the air quality monitor. There was a north-northeast wind, which is rare in this city. Mostly it's from the northwest or the southeast. Those are the two predominant winds in our city. Prevailing wind is northwest. So north-northeast is kind of weird, and we do get little weird, patterns of air in the wintertime here. And that would put the oil refinery in our city, which is on the edge of the city, right in line with where that air quality monitor is. I didn't know where the air quality monitor was, so I contacted the media department at Environment Canada, and they got back to me and said it is at 1621 Albert Street, which is the old Superstore building if you were local.
Almost downtown.
And that's actually where That's where I'm going to all my medical appointments now because they have pre-surgery stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in that building now. It's an office building. Didn't notice the air quality monitors. Could be on the roof, but that's where it is. It's very centrally located in the city. Now I know because I often wondered where the hell it was. Like there was rumors on the internet that it was south of the city, but that's a different monitor. That's monitoring sort of a long-term national air quality monitoring project that's outside the city. So yeah, now I know. So if the wind is from the northeast, I suspect, Brian, that you had some of that air because it was from the northeast that it probably made it down to where you are. So the whole city in that situation, yes, it's not common, but the whole city is breathing that in. Our furnaces, modern furnaces have air intakes on them. If you don't even have a fresh air exchanger like you do and some of my friends do, that's the situation where it is. And I want to know what's going on. And, there's this organization that has a monitor in East Regina, and I forget the organization's name, but it's about air quality. And I noticed friend of the show, Jim Elliott, local environmentalist, and hopefully he's listening to the show. I noticed he's on the board and he's the treasurer, but everyone else on the board is from like the oil industry or the steel industry. They're from the polluters. So I it's hard for me to trust them. And you have to buy a membership in this place there's supposedly monitoring the air, but where it is, I don't know. Don't know if it's in line with where the oil refinery blows its crap, but it's, for whatever reason, I know that we're a city of 250,000 people in the general vicinity, a couple thousand probably in metro here. It's not that big of a city, so we shouldn't have too much pollution to cause poor air quality from cars, especially at 5 in the morning on a Saturday. No one's driving. Brian Stockton is barely awake at that hour. Like nobody's awake. The drunks are asleep. The farmers aren't up yet. The Stocktons are barely getting out of bed. So I don't know what it is. It's of course, wood burning fireplaces is an issue in cities. Montreal sort of regulated that. I think Vancouver did too.
Yeah.
But you're not burning wood at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
That's not happening. And so it's not car pollution. It's not fireplaces. It would have to be the burning of natural gas for heating homes and or industrial processes, which there are two in this city, two main ones. So further, the puzzle is slowly going together on the Clean Energy Show's air quality project here. And frankly, it's not good. It's worse than I thought, worse than I ever feared.
Los Angeles used to get half of its power from 2 large coal-fired power plants, which means that every other month, Angelinos were sending their bills out of state to coal-fired power plants that were polluting our air and our water and our climate. And Los Angeles, California are particularly vulnerable to climate change.
Yeah, so we have a story here from Electrek. There is no more coal powering the city of Los Angeles. And this is a big deal. Los Angeles is a huge city. The city officials say that the Intermountain Power Project, IPP in Utah, the last coal-fired power plant supplying Los Angeles, went offline just before Thanksgiving. So just recently here. They had
Rest in peace.
Yeah. They had 2 massive units with a combined capacity of around 1,800 megawatts. When fully operational, as recently as 2024, they still supplied around 11% of LA's electricity. And that plant sits in Utah's Great Basin region and powered Southern California for decades. So now for the first time, none of LA's power comes from coal. That story from Electrek.
Not shocking if you listen to the show.
Yeah.
It was a little bit surprising to me that they still had any coal.
Well, that's the only downside of a story like this. When it's always great to report on, coal going away, but it always gives me that thing of, wait a minute, shouldn't this have happened a few years ago? So that's the only downside.
So lots of rooftop solar in California, especially Southern California. Past programs have had good feed-in tariffs and subsidies for that. Electricity is very expensive in California, largely due to past wildfires and lawsuits against the utility and just repairing lines and sort of fireproofing the electricity system, and also a speedy delve into renewables. But yeah, when it becomes that expensive, it becomes easier to put renewables on the grid. And I know that they're getting wind from as far away as Arizona and Nevada and solar. So they have a good interconnection there. between some of the less Western states, and that's necessary for having good renewables. And often, and we talk about the battery power there, being the number one source of electricity in the summertime because they power up with solar. And then when people get home from work for 2 or 3 hours, it can be the number one, source of energy is from good old batteries, just the same batteries that are in cars, just slightly different versions of them and big ones.
Yeah, including small virtual power plants where people have batteries in their homes and those can be networked with software. So that's another, adds to the grid.
Built for their eco-friendliness, low running costs, energy efficiency, and noise reduction, e-motorbikes are on the rise in Kenya. They are common among motorbike taxi operators, commonly known as boda-bodas, and riders for e-commerce and food delivery startups like Jumia, Glovo, and Uber Eats.
Nairobi Rideshare is now 40% electric. That is their Bolt Rideshare, their largest network. Nairobi, Kenya's capital and economic hub, is a dense, fast-growing city where motorcycles are essential for commuting, deliveries, and ride-hailing. Yeah, everybody's on a motorcycle. Everyone's on a two-wheeler there, and they're stinky. There's less pollution guides for two-wheeled bikes for combustion, and they're noisy and stinky. And when I say stinky, I mean health-causing pollution. The city struggles with traffic congestion and air pollution, making cleaner transport solutions especially important. Whenever you have a situation like that, and there's many places in India, if not all of India, where that makes sense, and that's why they're electrifying their two-wheeled fleets as well and three-wheeled fleets. Kenya's electric motorcycle market is accelerating quickly. Here's an example. EV motorcycles reached 10% of new registrations in 2025. That's up from 7% in the year before. And Bolt, like I said, one of the Nairobi's biggest ride-hailing services, has become the city's largest electric mobility provider. 40% of their fleet is now electric motorcycles. So that's pretty good, especially in Africa where sometimes you don't have access, but there's lots of people making companies, factories in Africa for electric two-wheelers, which is a good thing because it, spurs the economy. They're not all imported from China. That's not the case. The platform logged 4.8 million EV rides last year, showing strong rider and passenger adoption. I was watching a video about it, and you could talk while you were on the motorcycle. You can't do that on the other kind of motorcycle. Financing partnerships are driving the shift. M-KOPA has enabled 1,700 plus Nairobi riders to access electric bikes through flexible payment plans, which is nice. If you can have a payment plan, it'll get you to adopt something that's brand new. Riders earn more thanks to lower fuel and maintenance costs. Yeah, so if you're an Uber driver type thing with a motorcycle, and it's electric, and remember, Africa is not refining their own fossil fuels, so diesel and gas tend to be quite expensive and problematic unless it's subsidized by the government, then you're going to earn a lot of money. And as renewables take over, that electricity should become even cheaper and more accessible. Watu is expanding EV financing and battery swapping hubs across major cities, including Nairobi. That's where the batteries come out. They're like a big loaf of bread. A couple of them, you take them out, you travel for an hour, and maybe you take them out at a station, at a convenience store or a public place, a gas station even, and you swap them and you don't have to do anything. It just charges your account and you have fresh batteries wherever you need them instead of sitting there for an hour or two charging that thing. Transport accounts for 39% of Kenya's CO2 emissions, which is a big chunk. I don't know what it is in Canada, but it's a much smaller thing because all the heating and the industry we have here creates a lot of CO2 emissions, with motorcycles being a major share of that 39%. So it's crucial that electrification happens for Nairobi's air quality to improve. Local companies like Roam and Ampersand are assembling electric bikes in Kenya and expanding charging networks across the capital. Yeah, some of these parts are still made in China. The batteries probably are. Nairobi's rapid EV uptake signals a major shift towards cleaner, cheaper urban mobility. And I love that story because CO2 aside, climate aside, there's just benefits to these things, They're just better. They're funner to drive, they're more pleasant to drive, and they don't stink. Just the smell, even if it was healthy to breathe that stuff, it's unpleasant, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually killing you, and it's actually, killing the planet. So it's a win-win when anything goes electric over fossil fuels.
All right, this next story is from Agence France Presse. It's about Norway. We love to talk about Norway. They are one of the leaders in electric vehicle adoption. The countdown is on. This is the last month in Norway where you'll be legally allowed to buy a combustion car. They are now 98, 99% EVs for their new car sales. But of course, they're funding this in many ways by oil. Like Norway has great offshore oil reserves, which apparently are starting to dwindle a little bit. They're past the glory days of their oil in Norway. So they've been, selling all this oil, but keeping the money and using it towards clean energy projects. And they have a massive national wealth fund where they're stockpiling this money, which they're going to need because, they want to phase out fossil fuels. So Norway said Wednesday it's going to set up a commission to study potential scenarios for the country's post-oil economy. And this was a commitment that the Green Party secured in exchange for backing the government's 2026 budget bill. So they have a minority Labour government in Norway, which means that they need support from other parties in order to, pass bills and get the country running. We often have minority governments here in Canada. So hard-fought negotiations overnight, Tuesday to Wednesday last week. They agreed with the Greens to create a commission tasked with reflecting on what shape Norway's post-oil economy would take. We're now beginning to write the final chapter in Norway's oil history and paving the way for all the new adventures that will make Norway progress, said the Greens party official in a statement. It's, however, far from their original goal for the Green Party. They call for the country to adopt a plan to phase out hydrocarbons by 2040. So they didn't get that. But even just forming a committee to talk about the plan, I wish people around here were actually doing that. I know it's still some years in the future, but, we have to talk about shutting these things down. Like, what's the plan going to be to shut these things down?
Well, Alberta next door has been talking about putting a little bit of money away for orphan oil wells, because when you stop drilling oil and they, if it's small or mid-sized companies, these oil companies, they go out of business and then the wells sit there and you can't sue them because they're bankrupt.
Yeah.
They made all their money. The managers made it, their money. The crew people made their money. And they've moved on. And, I think in Norway, what it comes down to is they know they're lucky to have this oil and their economy is doing well. Their social infrastructure is well for them. And they're happy. They don't want that to go away. They know that oil is going to go away. So they want that to continue. So they put oil away in the bank so that wealth could continue and they would not just suddenly be piss poor like we are in Canada, because we don't do that.
Well, and like you say, if we do put money away from the oil industry, we're going to have to use all of it to just clean up these orphan wells. Like there's just so much nasty pollution left over from that thing. And I was going to mention too, I finished watching The Long Way Round, the Ewan McGregor motorcycle travel series on Apple TV. And they did a bunch of driving through Norway and Sweden and that kind of area. And the infrastructure is fantastic. Like there's all these amazing bridges in Norway because they've had the money, they've had the funding to create like really good infrastructure. And apparently there's islands with 20 people on them that have these, massive bridges.
Wow.
Because they can afford to do it.
And we have oil where we live, but we have nothing.
Not a lot to show for it. Yeah.
All of it goes to the oil companies because they don't want, they want to make sure that the economy is boosted with oil exploration. They don't want to discourage that, but Norway has not done that. And it's frustrating because so much money, I don't have the figures in front of me. We've mentioned it many times on the show, how many billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in the world subsidizes fossil fuels. And when the fossil fuels go away, we're going to continue subsidizing them forever, almost forever, for generations as we're cleaning this crap up because they're not going to do it themselves. And it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And it's bad for the environment because some of them are leaking methane. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. And the other thing that's happening in Norway is they're phasing out their EV subsidies. So the way they got to 98% EV new car sales is, by eliminating taxes and stuff like that. So now that they've achieved their goal They're starting to phase out some of these tax breaks for EVs, but they're trying to do it slowly over a few years.
And that was always the plan, is to get the adoption rate up and then, make it normal, like everywhere else. Let's dip into the mailbag, Brian. Here's a letter from Eric, who writes us about the Chernobyl nuclear site that is in the news this week.
A concerning assessment from the United Nations nuclear watchdog. The International Atomic Agency says this Russian drone strike back in February damaged the site of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster so badly a protective shield can no longer contain radiation effectively. The IAEA has conducted some temporary repairs, but it is recommending a major renovation to secure that site.
So Eric writes, "Hi, Brian and James. Look at this article and think about it when you decide to keep pushing the notion that we should keep supporting existing nuke plants for the sake of low-carbon electricity. We have much, much better options than nuclear, as you said multiple times on your show. I see no reason to keep these dangerous plants open any longer. They simply are not worth the risk." Eric from the Bay Area. Eric, you're no fun. You're just no fun, Eric. You made us rethink hydro dams. Every time we mention hydro, I've got you in the back of my mind telling me, James, hydro's bad. But, with the hydro anyway, the solution is maybe there's most of the dams, 97% of them in the United States, for example, are not. Most 97% of the dams are not hydro dams. So you could start, eliminating those.
Yeah.
While we build up renewables. But with nuclear, Brian, most people say that most of the experts that I follow are for nuclear. I mean, even Greta Thunberg is for keeping the nuclear plants open until we build up renewables. So I'm not sure that I agree with Eric, but I don't totally disagree either, because I feel the same anxiety over the dangers of nuclear that many people tell me not to feel. I do feel that, and I do feel like I wish the world did not have that.
Well, here's my catchphrase for 2025, which I realize that I've been saying a lot lately, which is there's no right answer. Because the problem is, if you do shut down the nuclear plants, someone's going to want to reopen a coal plant to supply the electricity, or build more natural gas plants to supply the electricity. So that's the danger of closing down the nuclear, as well as, of course, accidents are a potential problem. But there's no right answer, I think.
Nuclear proponents will say that, new nuclear is so safe, and that's why it's so expensive, is because of all the previous accidents. And new technologies will hopefully make that safer. But I have to admit, I am surprised that people like Microsoft and others that are building data centers or buying nuclear plants and refurbishing them to keep them going. Like, I think, why do that? Why not build renewables? You can do it faster, even faster than refurbishing a nuclear plant, let alone building one, and it's less risk because it's you know what you're doing. So I'm a little confused by that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to have that responsibility on my hands of saying, hey, start up that nuclear plant. What could possibly go wrong? I wouldn't want to be the person making that call.
Google made a town in Wisconsin, have to evacuate and relocate 1,000 kilometers away. Who knows what could happen? But yeah, Brian Stockton, T-shirt coming, no right answer.
There's no right answer.
I could put that on the store if I thought they would sell. We do have a merch shop. And I need a picture of you wagging your finger saying there's no right answer, or a caricature or something. Yeah, well, thanks, Eric. This is from the BBC article on that issue. A protective shield covering the Chernobyl nuclear reactor in Ukraine can no longer provide its main containment function following a drone strike earlier this year, according to a UN watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Inspectors found that the massive structure built over the site of the 1986 nuclear disaster had lost its primary safety functions, including the confinement capability. In February, Ukraine accused Russia of targeting the power plant, a claim the Kremlin denied. This is located in Ukraine. The IAEA said repairs were essential to prevent further degradation of the nuclear shelter. However, environmental expert Jim Smith told the BBC it is not something to panic about. Professor Smith said from the University of Portsmouth in the UK, who has studied the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, said the biggest danger linked to the site was disturbing radioactive dust.
Yeah.
But it's scary, nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely scary. All right, if you want to contact us, please let us know. cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow.
The Clean Energy Show podcast is an independent podcast made possible by listeners like you who support us on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/cleanenergyshow and support this podcast for as little as $1 per month. Doing so gets you perks like ad-free episodes, exclusive access to the Clean Energy Show Discord server, discounts at our merch store, early access to our episodes before the public, behind-the-scenes material and private updates, thank you credits on our video podcast, and verbal shout-outs once a month on our audio podcast, or even every week if you support the Clean Club Executive. Coming up next is the lightning round. It's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Canada, Brian Stockton, has just reached a major milestone in EV adoption. More than 1 million electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles. That is to say, there are now 1 million vehicles in Canada with a plug. Small country.
Yeah.
38, 40 million people?
That's not bad.
A lot of it is cold. A lot of it's cold. A lot of it's spread out.
Yeah.
Large distances between centers. Not bad. That's from just 18,000 EVs in 2015 to 200,000 in 2020. And now it has reached the 1 million milestone. We've been without a federal rebate for some time now. I think a year and a half or something.
Yeah. And we have a new prime minister who's making pipeline deals rather than giving an EV subsidy. So people are still expecting it might happen. Who knows? But yeah, I got my first EV in 2020. So I guess I was one of 200,000. I think there was 400 in our province back in 2020.
When they saw fit to add a EV road tax.
Right, exactly.
We got a lightning round for you this week. Brian says just call it the light round. So I saw this on Twitter this morning. This is from the government of Saskatchewan. That's where Brian and I live, the province in Canada. And they wanted to point out that vehicle fires can still happen in winter. Because we're always talking about how we're coming across vehicle fires and they're not EVs. They're actually gas vehicles. And they say check for leaks, odd smells. Well, I have that in my car a lot. And overheating. And keep your battery, wiring, and heating system in good shape. If a fire starts, pull over, turn off the engine, get out, move 30 meters away, and call 911. A little prep goes a long way. And of course, I reposted this on Twitter and said, just buy an EV. You're 20 times at least less likely to catch fire in an EV.
Yeah.
A study of thousands of children across the developing world found that those continually exposed to heat were more likely to see developmental delays. That is from Yale Environment. At Moscow's Kapotnya oil refinery, hundreds of men from India, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Central Asia now stand in long lines for jobs that were once filled by local Russians. Why is this interesting? The camera person at the scene remarks, there are no local men left.
Wow.
This is quite remarkable that, all men have been sent off to fight in the war and have been used as pawns and have been horribly massacred by the smaller Ukraine side. And this is disrupting traditionally male jobs in Russia.
Yeah, well, we haven't had this here in North America since World War II, when we had massive troops causing a labor shortage.
So although Russia's official casualty numbers remain classified, the impact is becoming very visible. Thousands of Russian men are no longer reporting to work because if they do, they're either sent to the front already or they could be picked up at work to be sent to the front. And even in a city that is more than 90% ethnic Russian and historically resistant to relying on migrant labor, it's a very white Russian city. Foreign workers are now filling positions at a key refinery where this would not be accepted before, but now they have to. It's a striking sign of how deeply the war has depleted the country's male workforce. India has delivered 50% of their installed power capacity from non-fossil fuels 5 years early.
Yeah. People make goals and they often beat them.
Spain is legislating 95% of new vehicle sales be EVs by 2035. We could do that here. We threw that away.
Yeah.
Said it wasn't realistic. And other countries say, why it is realistic. So I don't know what's going on with that, especially here in North America and other Western countries. Pakistan's power cuts and steep electricity tariffs have pushed its 250 million people to adopt solar at remarkable speed. Mentioned many times on the show, solar's share of electricity generation has now surpassed China's. Wow. So there's more, solar is a bigger part of the Pakistan grid than it is of China. We've been talking about China since day one of the show almost 6 years ago. And Pakistan did that in 3 years.
Wow.
It started 4 years. And it started from almost zero 4 years ago. Nothing. Hardly at all. And that's because of economics.
Yeah.
Because the power wasn't there. It was increasing in price because their grid was just a mess, still is. And factories use diesel generators, which cost a lot. They've gone this route, and very quickly. So it shows what solar is capable of. The country is now the world's third largest importer of solar panels. By 2026, daytime solar output is expected to exceed grid demand in several major industrial regions for the first time. This rapid shift is shaping energy markets. Pakistan is renegotiating its LNG supply deals with Qatar and has already canceled shipments from Italy's Eni. Chinese automaker BYD, who only sell EVs and plug-in hybrids, so all their cars have a plug of some sort, sold 19,241 fully electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles in Europe last month. Now, Brian, that is a 255% leap from the same period a year before.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing 20, 30, 40% increases in EV adoption. But as far as their sales go, they've hit an S curve when you get 255.
Yeah.
And people are becoming to accept them. The dealerships are everywhere. The neighbors have them. They're okay. They're non-threatening. They're not spying on me necessarily, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
They're filling a gap that isn't necessarily being filled by the traditional automakers. They saw a hole. They're being allowed into the European market, and they are taking advantage.
That being said, the Chinese government is nasty.
Yeah.
You know, they're authoritarian. There was a dissident here in Canada who they made basically revenge porn with AI for her to wreck her. And, you know, if I say the wrong thing about China, they're going to do that with me. And I'll say right now, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. You make your revenge porn, Zheng, about me. If you don't like what I say, let it be out there.
It sounds like you maybe kind of want that to happen.
Well, I'm not going to say anything further. Okay, because we like beaver stories here at the Clean Energy Show, a wild beaver has been spotted in Norfolk, in England, UK, for the first time, since beavers were hunted to extinction in England at the beginning of the 16th century. Maybe he's just been hiding for several hundred years in a hole somewhere.
Wait a minute. This is the first I'm hearing of this. They were hunted to extinction in England back in the 16th century.
You just don't get out of the house. Yes, they didn't like them.
Well, that sounds like a good movie premise, like trying to hunt down all the beavers in England. I think that'd be a good movie.
Well, we don't know, okay? The pelts might have been worth something, or they might have been damming things and hunted for that reason, or both.
Yeah.
It was filmed dragging logs and establishing a lodge and a perfect beaver habitat on the River Wensum at Pesthrope, a nature reserve near Fakenham in Norfolk. And that story is on The Guardian. And I saw one of those animal videos on YouTube of a beaver that was rescued inside a house.
Yep.
And at Christmas time, he started building a dam with all the Christmas stuff at a hallway. He had this video of him dragging the Christmas tree out, then dragging the Christmas tree wrap around and presents and build his own little dam.
Beaver's gonna beave.
Beaver's gonna beave. There's a second T-shirt we can put on the merch store with Brian Stockton's face on it. And finally, this week, another funny story because The Onion made me laugh. This is talking about what you were talking about. Saudi Arabia is buying up a lot of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And The Onion had a headline here that said, Hollywood films increasingly funded by Saudi Arabia. So they did what do you think? And talked to people on the street, supposedly. Of course, they're all fake. And the person on the street said, so now when I burn fossil fuels, I'm supporting the arts.
Nice.
So there you go.
All right. Well, I think that's our show for this week. You can find us on social media at Clean Energy Pod. Please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/cleanenergypod, and the email cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And this is very important. Remember to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast right now.
And if you missed our bonus episode, which just dropped, you missed some stuff because we covered Rivian's unexpected new gadget, a smart bike helmet, which is Very smart.
Yeah.
And relatively reasonably priced. Yes, there are smart bike helmets now for safety. And why corn farming is causing more climate trouble than most people think, including fertilizer emissions and long-term soil issues. And we have talked about solutions for sustainable agriculture, ideas and innovations that reduce nitrous oxide emissions, improve soil health, and make food systems more sustainable. And you had a story about the world's largest sand battery. So remember to join our Patreon, patreon.com/cleanenergypod. And thanks to Executive Clean Club members Green Bastard and Brent Routley. And thank you all for supporting our podcast, however you do it. We'll see you again in 7 days.
See you next week.